The views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
The depictions of what allegedly occurred are nowhere near what really happened. Whoever wrote this script needs to be drug tested. Well acted, at least by the main two characters, but not true. Well, he's been the perfect prisoner. He's got no disciplinaries. He does what he's told to do. He helps people.
A perfect prisoner. Alec Murdaugh's defense attorney speaking out on how the convicted killer is doing behind bars and what he thinks of the recent Hulu series about Alec Murdaugh's life. And we're on a verdict watch in Virginia. Jury deliberations resuming this morning in the civil trial for the teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old student. Plus, dishing on Donna Adelson, her jailed daughter, speaking out on what really happened behind bars. Plus, we've got a twist in the Arizona hot car death case as Christopher Schultes is found dead by apparent suicide right before he was supposed to turn himself in. We're talking about the lingering questions in this case. It's all coming up next for you right here on Opening Statements. Good Thursday morning to you and welcome to Opening Statements. I'm Julie Grant. Are you ready for some coffee and some cords? We got a great show planned for you, so let's get it started. Grab that coffee right now. It's time for my opening statement. Two wrongs don't make a right. After he took his daughter's life, he took his own life. The situation with Christopher Schultes is beyond tragic. He's the father of 3 daughters. And we've been talking a lot about his 2-year-old daughter Parker's death back in July of 2024. Christopher Schultes left Parker in a hot car in their driveway, and she was killed by the sweltering temperatures. Well, now his 2 older daughters will have to grow up not only without their baby sister, but without their dad as well. So who knows what Christopher Schultes was thinking when he took his own life, right? Did he think that that would spare anyone the pain of losing Parker? Did he do it to avoid taking accountability for Parker's death? We may never know exactly why, but this morning what I do know is that his older daughters have suffered enough with their baby sister's death. And I hate that they're experiencing even more pain and suffering with their dad's death. May God bless and comfort them today and every day as they must now go through life with only half of their family. That's my opening statement on this Thursday morning. Let me know if you like it. Right now, it's time for your daily docket.
Our agreements have been simple, right? No exes, nobody from Jacksonville, Florida, which is home for us, and nobody in the city that you live in, that currently live in, which means nobody in Memphis.
In Tennessee, the state has one more witness before resting in the Broke My Heart murder trial for defendant Latasha Daniels. And then we could find out if the defendant will testify. Court's going to get underway at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. In Iowa, we've got testimony beginning at 10 a.m. in the Meadow Pipe Massacre trial for defendant Luke Truesdell. He's accused of killing 4 people at a rural property and attacking them with a metal pipe. And in Virginia, we're on a verdict watch in the civil trial for the teacher who was shot by her 6-year-old student. Jury deliberations resume at 9 a.m. And that is where we begin this hour. So what will the jury decide? The plaintiff, former first-grade teacher Abby Zwerner, is suing the assistant vice principal, Dr. Ebony Parker, asking for a sum of $40 million. The plaintiff's alleging that Parker failed to act after being warned several times that the young student had a firearm. The jury got to hear the closing arguments from the plaintiff and the defense before they went back to deliberate.
They're going to try and argue to you is who could have seen that a 6-year-old would pull out a gun from his pocket, point it at a teacher, and shoot? That's not the question. Each had a piece of the puzzle. But you know who had the entire puzzle? Dr. Parker. Dr. Parker. And this is what we talked about. That a bullet pierced through her hand, into her rib, through her lung.
I submit to you that Dr. Parker did not assume a duty of care to Ms. Zwerner. She did not breach a duty of care, and that she was not grossly negligent. And it stops there. That until that day was unprecedented, it was unthinkable, and it was unforeseeable. And I ask that you please not compound that tragedy by blaming Dr. Parker for it. So how did you think the attorneys did? And what do you think the jury is going to do? What's your prediction with this case? Let's bring in our legal analyst guests this hour, get their predictions. I want to welcome in now high-profile attorneys Michael J. Brown and John Phillips. Good morning to you both. All right, so let's start with how we think the lawyers did in the closings, and then let's get your predictions on what the jury is going to do. John Phillips, would you start us off with your thoughts, please?
Good morning, everybody. I thought they did really good. You know, this is a really complicated civil case because what usually happens is there's a level of workers' compensation immunity and different types of immunity that roll into that you're not allowed to typically sue your employer or co-employees for matters that happen on the workplace. Because this is a little different, and gets into, and you heard the words gross negligence and wanton and willful conduct, it can be an exception. Usually judges balance that out and make decisions and prohibit trials in many cases like these. And so they're all kind of going through the elements and explaining why this particular set of facts was particularly willful, particularly wanton, and a threat not just to, because you can't really golden rule it, but not just a threat to this teacher, who was shot, but you know, it is, you kind of want to ring the bell that this has, you know, other consequences as well without saying that.
Yeah, sure it does. This is going to be a landmark case for sure. John, thank you. Michael J. Brown, to you next. Your thoughts on what the lawyers did in their closing arguments.
Good morning, Julie. Good morning, John. I think they did a great job. It's a really, really neat case. And I think each of the attorneys hit on the issues that were really important. The defense was hitting on the foreseeability, oh my goodness, I can't speak this morning. Foreseeability issue, Julie. And it really comes down to, hey, I got to have another cup of coffee, I guess. The issue is really whether or not a 6-year-old, can you expect and foresee that a 6-year-old would actually take a gun out and shoot somebody? And a lot of people would say no, but the plaintiffs came back and said, hey, you know what? In today's society, anything is possible. And the plaintiffs hit on the issue of there were so many telltale signs. There were so many issues and warnings here that it became foreseeable. And what the principal needed to do and was required to do and had a duty to do under the law is act and take action. And she didn't do that. So at the end of the day, I do think it's going to be a plaintiff's verdict. What was interesting is many experts testified, Julie, and we saw that. And I think John would agree with this, hopefully, that, you know, in these types of cases, experts a lot of times cancel themselves out. So what you're left with is just testimony of the layperson. And I do think at the end of the day, it's going to be a plaintiff's verdict.
Michael, thank you for that. You know, speaking of the experts, let's take a look at one of the defense witnesses. The defense case is really going to hinge on this expert testimony about that foreseeability factor. Here we go. Do you have any opinion on whether Dr. Parker could have foreseen JT's actions that day based on the information that she had?
I think it would be difficult for anyone to have foreseen that. I think the actions of everyone involved indicate that they were doing an analysis, but yet that they did not perceive this to be a plausible, imminent threat, both the behaviors as well as the actions.
Okay, so let's get some predictions. Now, Michael, you gave us yours already. John Phillips, what's your prediction on the verdict, please?
It's interesting there because you don't usually see experts weigh in on whether something's foreseeable or not. That you have the facts that determine that, and I would have motioned and limited this witness saying, you know, that she's invading the province of the jury. But it's the nature of this case, and as somebody who's about to file a lawsuit on behalf of teachers whose speech was purged as somebody who worked yesterday taking depositions on shooting cases, this one hits close to home and will be a landmark for, even though it's in a different state, for how we move and operate in this new era. And so I'm kind of hoping for a plaintiff's verdict. Again, collection and how it works with insurance policy is a whole different question. But I kind of agree with Michael on that point for sure.
Okay, you both say plaintiff's verdict. I'm in agreement with you two. I think it's going to be a plaintiff's verdict as well. Friends at home, hit us up on social media right now. Let us know what you think the verdict is going to be. Let's take a moment to look back at the plaintiff, Abby Zwerner, when she got on the stand.
I thought I had died. I thought I was either on my way to heaven or in heaven, but then it all got black, and so I then thought I wasn't going there.
Oh, it's miraculous, in my view, that she survived this and she is doing as well as she's doing today. And this case won't be it for her, as we know, because there is a criminal case pending against the defendant. So Michael J. Brown, talk to me about that, how you expect that to go when it's the time for Dr. Ebony Parker to be prosecuted and Abby Zwerner to come in front of the courtroom and share what she shared in this case.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting, Julie, because remember, the civil case has a much lower standard. You have preponderance of the evidence. And in a criminal case, the state will have to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt, which is a much higher and difficult standard. And then you have language like the reckless disregard for human life and the gross wanton culpable to show this reckless disregard, and that's right out of the statute. I was trying to paraphrase. It is a tough road to sell a jury, I think, on the criminal level. There's a big difference between the civil level and the criminal level and the culpability standards and the proof of evidence. So I don't know. Certainly, if they don't get a plaintiff's verdict, I think it's going to be extremely difficult to predict that they're going to get a conviction on the criminal level.
Yeah, excellent point, Michael. John, let me ask you about something else. This kid, this 6-year-old kid, we know there were some horrible things that he did long before this incident in question, like threatening another student, strangling a teacher, lifting up a little girl's dress, and touching her inappropriately on the playground. My goodness, the child's mother prosecuted, totally separate case. This child, do you think there's any hope for this child, John, going forward, not to be a monster of an adult?
I have grave concerns about this child and all of the children in America, Julie. The rhetoric, what we're teaching, how we allow government officials and third parties, including gun manufacturers, to get down on 4chan and 8chan and video game servers and just make people hate each other. We're really in trouble, and the best way out is parenting. The best way out is love, but we've got to find where we can all stick together again and worry about things like school shootings and not try to get rid of the teachers we don't like based upon speech or just yell at each other. If we don't figure that out, we're going to have so many little monsters out there, and they were by our own creation.
Yeah, you're so right, John. A perfect point to end on. Thank you both so much for the great segment. We'll get the verdict clock ticking as soon as that jury is back deliberating. Stand by, my friends. Coming up next here on Opening Statements, you get to see my one-on-one interview with Alec Murdaugh's defense attorney. What about the murders? Does he not accept responsibility for committing those?
No, and he's not going to, and he shouldn't.
Okay. Plus, we've got Mama Donna's jailed daughter discussing what the now convicted killer was like when they were both in the county jail together.
The Court TV podcast will return.
The Murdaughs are a South Carolina legal dynasty.
Y'all know me. I'm an honest man.
Oh, you cheating bastard.
It's only cheating if you get caught.
True crime watchers are loving Murdaugh, Death in the Family on Hulu. But Alec Murdaugh isn't a fan, calling it deeply disappointing from behind bars through his attorneys. He released a statement saying in part, quote, the program contains numerous inaccuracies and misleading portrayals that distort the truth of their lives. Attorney Dick Harpootlian, one of the lawyers who represented Murdaugh in his trial and helped write that statement for him, spoke with me about the reaction to the drama and what's accurate or inaccurate. Dick, good morning to you. Thanks so much for speaking with me.
Well, good morning to you, and thank you for having me on.
Certainly. So first question for you, please. How is Alec Murdaugh watching Hulu in the prison?
He's not. And we put in our statement that he was relying on summaries or characterizations related to him by friends and family and other folks, including me.
That was going to be my next question. So you're watching that? Are you watching every episode?
No, I watched the first episode and a half, and clearly it's not based on fact. I mean, it may be based on fact, but it's not factual. And, you know, it's just like watching a Hallmark TV show that's about Christmas. I mean, it's about the horrible circumstances, but the depictions of what allegedly occurred are nowhere near what really happened. Now, I will say this though, Patricia Arquette does I mean, I knew Maggie very well. I think she does an extraordinary job of portraying Maggie, and the guy playing, I forget his name, he's a British actor playing Alec does a great job.
Jason Clarke.
And the guy playing Randolph Murdaugh does a great job. The young actors playing Paul and Buster are okay. Whoever wrote this script needs to be drug tested.
Drug tested. Why do you say that? What's so inaccurate, Dick?
Well, everything. I mean, other than, yeah, Maggie and Paul were killed and Alec had a drug problem and stole a bunch of money. But for instance, in the television show, after the boat crash, after the bond hearing, which I'm depicted in, they allegedly go on a trip to the Bahamas, where everybody gets drunk, and they've got Alec out looking to pick up some skank, and Maggie actually looking at somebody. They never went to the Bahamas. There was never a Bahamas trip. And all of that is totally fabricated.
Dick, have you spoken to Buster about his thoughts on the series?
I have not. Jim Griffin, my co-counsel on this case, has talked to Buster, and you know, they're not watching it. But what they hear is, you know, scurrilous. So, again, this is just trying to monetize misery. And again, if people understand they're not watching something that's factual, I mean, the housekeeper who fell down the stairs in this
Gloria Satterfield
version, she is carrying their bags back up the stairs from the Bahamas visit, which was after the boat wreck. She'd been dead 2 years at that point in real life. I mean, you can have literary license to move things around, I guess, but again, nothing in this that I've heard or seen, it's based on fact.
Dick, let's talk about the tragedy that's really at the heart of this, the murders of Maggie and Paul. At this point in time, is Alec Murdaugh still trying to proclaim his innocence?
Yes, he is, because if you look at the evidence as to the murder, not the fact he stole $12 million, if you look at the forensic evidence on the murder, which the jury, well, for two reasons the jury never really considered. One was they spent 2.5 weeks hearing how he had victimized orphans and widows and paraplegics and just despicable conduct. that sort of reduced any ability to give him a fair trial. But more importantly, a judge, a former Chief Justice, had a hearing on the clerk of court, Becky Hill's interference, and found that Becky Hill had tried to convince jurors to vote guilty, that she interfered with the trial in a number of different ways. And so she fixed the jury. And so I don't think that we can say he got a fair trial. And I believe the Supreme Court will give him a new trial, the South Carolina Supreme Court, based on the testimony that Judge Toll elicited during the Becky Hill hearing.
I wanted to ask you about the status of his appeal. So for anyone wondering, where do things stand right now, Dick?
Well, it's been fully briefed. We filed our briefs. They filed their briefs. The Supreme Court has all of that now. They got it about 30 days ago. And, you know, these things take time.
Dick, you sound like you're ready to try the case again. If he gets a new trial, will you try it?
Oh, absolutely. Jim Griffin and I were talking yesterday, and we think that he will get a new trial. Now, I've been wrong before. But if he does get a new trial, we're absolutely representing him. And I talked to Alec day before yesterday, and he's enthusiastic about clearing his name.
Let's ask you a couple questions before we have to let you go about Alec Murdaugh in prison. People wondering what kind of experience this is for him. What kind of prisoner is he? What can you tell us about that, Dick?
Well, he's been the perfect prisoner. He's got no disciplinaries. He does what he's told to do. He helps people because he's a lawyer. Other inmates always ask him about legal issues. He is acclimated to prison life. He keeps himself physically fit and reads. As you indicated earlier, he hasn't had an opportunity to watch much educational television because they're very limited. But I think he's making the best of a very bad situation. And by the way, he doesn't blame anybody for him being in prison. He understands he's in prison because he stole a lot of money from people who trusted him. And I don't think he regrets pleading guilty, and I think he understands he's paying the price for what he did.
And what about the murders? Does he not accept responsibility for committing those?
No, and he's not going to, and he shouldn't. I understand the sanctity of the jury verdict, but I've never, ever, ever had a jury that somebody tried to fix. And so in this case, I don't think you can say the jury has spoken or spoken fairly. And their testimony, one of the jurors testified that Becky leaned on her to vote for guilty, not believe Alec. And she indicated to the judge that while she voted guilty, she doesn't believe he's guilty.
Are you visiting him in prison? Have you gone to see him since he's been in?
Where he is, I guess I'm not supposed to say where he is. It's about 3 hours from here. And extraordinarily difficult to get into. Once you get there, it probably takes 45 minutes to go through security, and then you have just a few moments to see him. We have much more in-depth discussions by phone. I don't want your viewership to think he's my best friend. He's not. He's a client, but I think he's a client that didn't get justice, and that bothers me.
Understood. Dick, tell me, how about Buster? What is their relationship like now with him being imprisoned and Buster moving forward without his mother, Maggie, without his brother, Paul?
I think, they have a good relationship. They talk by phone. I don't think Buster goes to the prison much. I'm really not read into how many times he's been down there. Buster got married this past summer to Brooklyn, who sat with him through the entire trial. And he'd been dating long before the murders. So he got married. He's got a job. She's a lawyer. She's got a job. I guess they're trying to do what every other married couple tries to do and get through life. And I think he loves his father, and he talks to his father and do anything to help his father.
Dick Harpootlian, thank you so much for your time, for the discussion. Please keep us posted if you have any more information about the next steps for your client, if there's any word on him receiving a new trial.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you for having me on.
Certainly. Thank you kindly. Take care. All right, still to come here on Opening Statements. Here's what we've got.
Harvey definitely has power in different ways, but Donna was the boss.
Mama Donna's jail daughter speaking out on what the now convicted killer was like behind bars. Plus, tragedy striking a family again. Christopher Schultes dead by apparent suicide right when he was about to turn himself in to serve his prison sentence for the death of his daughter.
Now, back to the Court TV podcast.
It came down to her admitting that, the kids were hers, and she said a lot of nasty things about Dan.
In our spotlight this morning, the woman that Mama Donna Adelson called her jailhouse daughter is speaking out as Adelson files her notice of appeal. Adelson's appealing both the guilty verdict and the murder of her former son-in-law, Dan Markell, and her life sentence in prison. However, the brief with her reasoning for the appeal has not yet been filed. So we'll wait on that, report back when we get it. In the meantime, we're hearing from the woman Donna called her jail daughter. Drina Bernhardt was in the Leon County Jail at the same time as Donna Adelson. And she went on our friend Joel Waldman's podcast, Surviving the Survivor. And she said she was offered cash, pills, commissary, even a grand piano to give false testimony during Donna's trial. And remember Donna's tearful testimony about her treatment in the jail by the other inmates? Well, Drina says it was all lies.
The shower thing was not true. Maybe her hearing was off, but she would talk to me about how she's going to manipulate the psychiatrist so she looked like she had memory problems. She was never attacked. Nobody grabbed her arm. No one was, it wasn't, no, she never got touched in the shower.
Oh boy, and that's not all Drina had to say. Let's get some more from our guest, Joel Waldman, the co-host of the Surviving the Survivor podcast. Joel, good morning to you. Tell us more. Tell us your biggest takeaway from this interview with the jail daughter.
Yeah, well, good morning, Julie. This was actually an interview I wasn't expecting to get. Drina Bernhardt, to be honest, was completely sort of contrary to what I was expecting. I think maybe some of us have these, images in our mind. I had heard, knew that she had been arrested 27 times. She's been in and out of jail constantly. She admits to having a drug addiction. So I was expecting, a much different type of personality, a harder personality. She described her parents as being hippies, and she kind of had that vibe to her. She was very sweet, very articulate, very kind of soft-spoken, very, very intelligent. And she really just gave insight into Donna Adelson behind bars. She kind of took us inside Donna's mind. And I've got to tell you, it's a scary place. I mean, she talked a lot about how when they were in the pod, it was a big pod with a lot of inmates, Donna had this sort of meek exterior on her personality. But when they were alone, the two of them, Donna suddenly is this tough woman dropping F-bombs, saying how much she despised Dan Markell. And if you remember at the sentencing hearing, she's talking about how Dan shouldn't be a victim either, and that she's a victim. But behind closed doors in jail, she's sitting here just denigrating Dan, the victim, and all this. And it was all about Donna, which isn't a surprise. We know this, but now hearing it and having it confirmed from Drina was very, very interesting insight.
Oh, absolutely, I'm sure. Joel, I want to play everybody a clip from your show where Drina's talking about hubby Harvey.
My first interaction was Donna called me over. She was on the phone with him on her bunk, and she wanted me to say hi. So I said hi, and he was, very kind. And he reminded me of someone like maybe from the mafia, like, Robert De Niro or Al Pacino or something. So But yeah, he talked to me, and then when I would get a toothache, we would call him, and he would tell me what to do. He was nice, but I felt I was intimidated by him.
Harvey the mafioso. What? What's this woman talking about, Joel? So her sense of Harvey was interesting, wasn't it?
Yeah, very interesting, and it confirms some thoughts I had. I covered the trial along with Court TV's Julia Janae. I was there, and I have to say, you know my mother, Julie. From day one, my mother has said that Harvey, she believes, is complicit in this. And after seeing him in person, he is a completely different person than the way he is sort of portrayed in the media, which is sort of this mild manner yin to Donna's yang. But I have no doubt that he is pulling the strings. Now, Drina admitted that when Donna would call Harvey from her, tablet in jail, oftentimes she would put Drina on the phone, or Harvey would ask to speak to Drina. And we've heard that Harvey was actually zelling her, Drina, money for the commissary, which is a no-no. And Drina said that Harvey even tried to contact her after being in jail. So what is Harvey up to? What was he doing? There was an investigation opened at one point. I bumped into Harvey at the local kind of luncheonette place in Tallahassee during the trial. He is a scary individual, and obviously this family orchestrated a murder for hire plot. He's somebody that I think prosecutors are still looking at.
Well, this is so interesting to hear you say that, Joel. Wow. And I love your beautiful, brilliant mother, by the way. Mama knows best, and her instincts or something's up with Harvey. And I feel the same way. I've said all along, I can see grounds for an arrest of Wendy and of him based on the evidence we've seen in these trials. So let's talk about that. Let's talk a bit about Wendy. Did Drina say something to you about how Donna expressed some worry about Wendy's arrest being imminent?
So Drina, she was a little bit careful. She opened up quite a bit, but she was a little careful, and it's obvious to us that she knows a little bit more. I mean, at one point, I'll get back to Wendy in just a second. If you watch the interview, and I didn't want to press her too hard because there's also an ongoing, investigation, possible, indictments coming down the road. So she implied, and I still don't fully understand what this is, that the Adelsons are responsible for other crimes. She didn't imply it. She said that. And I said, do you mean financial crimes? And she said no. So I don't know what that means specifically, but it is interesting. Now, as it pertains to Wendy, she said that Donna would only speak kind of lovingly about Wendy, that she didn't really show that much concern about an imminent arrest, but she talked about her as she was her sort of favorite little child, the youngest daughter, and that's how Wendy's always been portrayed. So she was kind of just reasserting what we had already thought and believed, how Donna felt about Wendy.
Wow, fascinating stuff. Joel, if our courties at home want to watch the whole thing, where can they see the interview?
Yeah, the interview's on YouTube, anywhere you listen to podcasts. The thumbnail has Donna's jailhouse daughter on it, and fairly easy to find.
Very good. Joel Waldman, thanks so much for coming on. We'll speak again soon. Still ahead here on Opening Statements. Here's what we've got.
When you look back on this time as the years follow, may you not feel tied down by what happened here, but rather lifted up by your baby sister's wings from up above.
The Pima County District Attorney's Office speaking to the Schultes family. This after Chris Schultes was set to turn himself in, but dies by suicide. We'll be right back.
This is the Court TV podcast.
Welcome back. Christopher Schultes, the father charged in the hot car death of his 2-year-old daughter, Parker, was found dead from an apparent suicide. This is according to prosecutors in Pima County. Here's more now from our affiliate Scripps News Tucson reporter Craig Smith.
Everything was ready here at Pima County Superior Court to take Christopher Schultes into custody for the death of his 2-year-old daughter in a hot car. He was already headed for 20 to 30 years in prison. But when the time came, For him to stand up and go into custody, he wasn't here.
Please, baby, please. Anything. Just let them focus.
A Marana police body camera caught Christopher Schultes as medical crews tried to save his daughter. Investigators say the day 2-year-old Parker Schultes died, she spent almost 3.5 hours strapped in a car seat in temperatures well over 100 degrees, while her father sat in the living room drinking, playing video games, and watching pornography. He was charged with first-degree murder. This is Christopher Schultes as he looked in one of many hearings before the one where he was to go into custody pending formal sentencing. After rejecting a plea deal 9 months ago, Schultes agreed to accept one after all. He pleaded guilty to second-degree murder. Sentencing was set for November 21st with a punishment range of 20 to 30 years in prison with no chance of parole. Even though he had not been formally sentenced, his guilty plea made prison time a certainty. Schultes was to appear in Judge Kimberly Ortiz's court to be taken into custody pending the formal sentencing. He did not appear. Judge Ortiz took the bench, then immediately recessed the court. A few minutes later, prosecutors and Schultes' defense attorney hustled out of an apparent meeting in chambers. None of the attorneys would explain what happened. Then we learned the Maricopa County medical examiner lists Schultes as dead. Maricopa County because Schultes moved his wife and 2 daughters there after Parker Schultes died. The Maricopa medical examiner has shared no details on how Christopher Schultes died. It could be 3 months before autopsy results are available. At Pima Superior Court, Craig Smith, KGUN 9.
Now let's take a look at the terms of that plea agreement that Schultes accepted. It would be sentences running consecutively, meaning one after another, 20 to 30 max of flat time, no eligibility for early release for him. He rejected the initial plea offer of 10 to 24 years in prison. So what he was agreeing to was really more than what was initially offered. He waited so long, really to the eve of trial. Pima County District Attorney Laura Conover addressed the media on Wednesday and had this message for Parker Schultes' older sisters.
May you be surrounded by love. May you receive all of the support you deserve and need, and then some. May you know and believe that you can survive and thrive.
So with this development, what are the lingering questions in this case? Here to talk about it, criminal defense attorney Michael J. Brown and criminal defense and civil attorney John Phillips. All right, so let's just start with just your initial reactions, and then we can get into any more legalities here. But this is one of those cases where just when you think it can't get more tragic, it does. Michael, your thoughts, please.
Yeah, the case is horrific, Julie. You know, this is a guy who allegedly not only did it to these 3 young children on the second marriage, but apparently did it on the first go-round to his other, I think, daughters from a prior relationship or marriage. What's really troubling to me, and I looked at Arizona as somewhat of a more conservative state. You know, in New York, I could imagine if he took a plea, initially being arraigned even on these charges, posting bail or having bail set. And then once he entered a plea of guilty, I'm surprised that the judge did not remand him pending sentencing. So the fact that he was free, even though there may have been significant bail, that's somewhat surprising to me because the risk of flight is tremendous. And obviously the presumption of innocence is defeated once he entered that plea of guilty. So that's something that struck me right off the bat.
That's an excellent thing you just brought up, Michael. You're right. So for anybody unfamiliar, that is odd that he wasn't remanded right there. He was given a report date, and so he was set to report and missed the date, and now we know why. So thank you for that. John, tell me your thoughts when you heard this awful news.
You know, you never really want to try to defend the horror of an action like this because the children died, right? But this man lost his children by his own hand, by his own actions, then lost in criminal court and really lost in the court of public opinion because this was highly, highly, highly discussed, particularly in his own neighborhood. And so, you know, you got to look at the overall mental health here and kind of how this progressed and how clearly there was something wrong with him. And Michael makes, you know, the foundational and fundamental point that, maybe somebody should have put the handcuffs on him right at the moment, that he was guilty and finish the plea. But, here we are, and there's no closure for anybody here. It's just more trauma.
Mm-hmm, right. And I think I see how the report date happened because he was out on bond on this case. I think perhaps because it was his own daughter who was deceased. We think about, gosh, what's a worse punishment than that? Can't think of one, right? Any amount of prison time and can never bring her back. So I suppose I see how this happened. But gosh, Michael, going back in time, when he rejected the first offer on this homicide of 10 to 24, I was shocked he rejected that. What do you think? Do you think that was a good offer that perhaps he should have taken the first time around?
Well, in retrospect, and we're playing, obviously, Monday morning quarterback, certainly, yes, it would have been a good, favorable disposition, because what happened here is he was playing chicken and he rejected the offer. They went forward. The prosecutor withdrew the offer, and then he realized, I don't think this looks good. I don't think I have a good shot. And then he did his best to get another plea offer, but now it gets worse. It didn't get better. So, yeah, in retrospect, he should have accepted and grabbed that offer because he ended up taking a worse offer.
Right, right. And in the court of public opinion, John, what do you think are the questions that are still lingering right now about this case?
How these children are going to be, the surviving children and the family. This is horrible. And it's just, there's no words, and I'm very familiar with these hot car death cases, and they're so preventable, but this gentleman had so many issues prior that somebody should have said something at a stronger level sooner. And we all are, we all are our own shepherds. So, it's just, we've got to protect these kids. I've said it now in 2 segments. Like, we've got to protect our kids.
Yeah, got to do better. Absolutely, John. Michael, what do you think that people would have wanted to hear from him at sentencing?
I think they would have wanted some excuse or explanation for what he did. It was callous, Julian. If you looked at the video, the way I looked at that video is he was not sympathetic. He wasn't showing that he was sorry for what he did. He actually was very matter of fact, and that was troubling to me as I watched it. So I think this is the father of a child, a beautiful young girl. I think the public, in terms of the public perception, would have wanted some answer. Were you high on drugs? Did you have a mental disease or defect? Did you have a troubled childhood? Why would you treat your child in that fashion? Because we treat our animals better. So why would you do that? And I think that's what they were looking for at the sentencing.
Yeah, you're so right. So well said. We've got to leave it here for now. You fabulous attorneys have cases to win. We got to let you get off to court. Michael J. Brown, John Phillips, thank you so much for the excellent insights today. And friends at home, thank you for watching this episode of Opening Statement. That's all for this episode of Opening Statements, my friends. I'm your host, Julie Grant, and it's been great being with you. On this show, I am calling out any pants on fire moments in our big trials and true crime stories, and I want you to come along with me. Opening Statements is live every weekday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern on Court TV. Thank you for downloading this episode. Please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with your friends. You can watch past shows anytime you like on CourtTV.com.